Okay, hello everyone. So this is Isabel from Wisconsin Land and Water, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to just start with my basic introductory spiel before I hand it off to Andrea. So as you just heard, I am going to be recording this webinar, and it'll be posted on the Wisconsin Land and Water website at some point in the near future. And when it is available, I'll also be sending out the link to it along with an evaluation. So that should be coming to your inboxes sometime, I'd hope, by this week. So just be aware of that. And so today our presentation will be on Nutrient Management 101. And our presenter is Andrea Topper with Wisconsin DAPCAP. How we're going to do it is we're going to take questions throughout the presentation through the chat line, which is on that bottom toolbar, and you can submit a question there at any time, and we'll try to get them answered and have time for sure at the end for any questions. And so I think that's about it from me. So without any further ado, Andrea, please take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me to talk a little bit about SnapPlus and the Nutrient Management Program here for the state of Wisconsin. So to kind of debrief you guys on a little bit of the format for today's meeting, we are going to start with a PowerPoint presentation. We're going to talk through some of the rules, regulations, what do we need with nutrient management plans, talk about how compliance is calculated in SnapPlus. And then after that, we're going to jump into the SnapPlus program, and we're actually going to walk through and build a plan. At that point in time, when I'm demonstrating in SnapPlus, if there are questions that that come up while I'm clicking through things, please feel free to stop me throughout that presentation, and we can work through those questions at that time. I think that'll be easiest for everyone, so we don't get confused here at the end. So let's jump on in. So first, I kind of like to talk about what is nutrient management. Well, nutrient management is a plan that we use to help monitor and utilize our on-farm nutrient sources. So first, we need to make sure that we're going to account for our on-farm manure and waste sources. So that's where we have our cows here. After we have gone out to our fields and allocated all of our manure and waste sources, we then need to identify what the remaining crop need is on our fields. And then we're going to meet that crop need with commercial fertilizers. In turn, at the end, we're going to have we're going to meet our total crop need and therefore have our beautiful cornfield here at the end. I like to go over a quick overview of the rules and regulations and why do we do nutrient management here in the state. So it is a requirement that all farms who are applying nutrient sources, whether that be commercial fertilizer and or manure, are required to have a nutrient management plan. Where does that come from? Well, to start, DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, sets state statutes. And NR 151 is a state statute that sets the agricultural performance standards for the state. DAPCAP, the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection, is then charged with providing guidance for meeting those statutes, which is why we have the rule ACCAP 50. ACCAP 50 is an administrative code that says in order to meet the nutrient management performance standards dictated by DNR's NR 151, we need to follow NRCS's 590 practice standard. And NRCS is a federal agency that sets conservation practice standards like 590. A good question is who can write nutrient management plans? Well, certified crop consultants can, certified crop advisors or professional agronomists are able to. If you're a registered soil scientist, you are all predetermined to be eligible to write nutrient management plans here in the state of Wisconsin. Landowners are also able to write their own nutrient management plans for their own operations if they attend a DAPCAP approved training course. Again, it's important that they're only writing plans for their own operation. And then they also must attend a refresher course once every 4 years to be able to maintain their certification. So the reason we're all here today is to talk a little bit more about SnapPlus, our nutrient management program here for the state. And what really is SnapPlus? Well, In long, SnapPlus is the Soil Nutrient Application Planner. It's Wisconsin's nutrient management planning software, and it's designed for the preparation of nutrient management plans in accordance with Wisconsin's NRCS 590 standard. So it's really, really awesome program that's going to help us meet compliance when we're writing our nutrient management plans. SnapPlus also helps us protect soil and water quality, and it calculates the potential soil and phosphorus runoff losses on a field-by-field basis. So it's a really powerful program that does a lot of awesome things for us. So as I stated, SnapPlus is a powerful program, but it needs a lot of information from us on our end as nutrient management plan writers. Our job is to make sure that we have all of the information that the program needs in order for it to be able to run the calculations in the background. So I'm kind of going to walk through here quickly. What are some things that we need before we even start writing a plan in SnapPlus? First and foremost, we need current soil tests from a DAC-CAP certified lab. What is deemed a current soil test? We need to be soil sampling our fields once every 4 years at a rate of 1 sample for every 5 acres. Okay, so these soil tests are used to calculate out our fertility recommendations within the SnapPlus program. So depending on where our soil sample results fall at, that is going to determine the amount of fertilizer and or manure that we're going to be putting out on our fields to meet our crop need. Additionally, we need field locations. So field locations are needed so that we can identify soil type as well as potential application restrictions in that area. Animal information is also important because it tells us how much manure a farm will be producing and how much land they will need to be able to spread on. The real meat and potatoes, though, of the nutrient management plan comes from the cropping information. So what crops are we planting? What's the expected yield goal? What kind of tillage is going to be done on this land? And what manure or fertilizer applications are being planned? And so that's where we're going to end up spending a lot of our time today, is on the cropping screen in SnapPlus. I mentioned a little bit earlier that there are a bunch of different calculations kind of running in the background that we don't necessarily know are happening until it tells us we're compliant or non-compliant at the end. So I want to take a little bit of time and touch on those equations and really kind of what it is calculating out for us. So the first equation that's running in the background is the Russell II equation. This equation gives us the estimated soil loss in your set rotation in SnapPlus. It takes many different factors into consideration, for instance, soil erodibility, slope length, steepness, and cover, just to name a few. Our goal with nutrient management planning is to reduce soil loss to tolerable levels, what we will refer to now as T. Okay, T levels vary for different types of soils. You can see a T value ranging from 1 to 5 tons per acre per year of soil loss. State law requires that every nutrient management plan be compliant with T. So on the right-hand side of the screen, I have a snapshot of the calculator in SnapPlus. You can see from this example that this field's soil type, the tolerable amount of soil loss is 3 tons per acre per year. With the current practices that I'm using on this field, I am not meeting T. I am about a ton or so of soil loss over my allowed amount. This is where I would take a moment to kind of review my practices and see what I could do within my rotation to fix or lower my T value. So what are some of those things that we can do to meet T? Well, we can alter our crop rotations, whether that be through increasing years of perennial crops in our rotation, beginning to utilize cover crops during the rotation, reducing years where biomass and residue is removed. So thinking about silage, reducing our years in which we have silage in our rotation would be extremely helpful. Improving crop residue production. So, just making sure that we're leaving residue out on the field as much as we can. We can also look at changing our tillage practices. So, any reduction in tillage is going to help us, whether that means you can completely eliminate tillage and we switch to no-till. You can reduce the intensity of your tillage practices, or you could eliminate fall tillage when you're not spreading manure, or you just look at your total number of passes that you're making across the field and reduce or eliminate one of those. We can also use conservation practices to help reduce our T's. We can look at strip cropping, which is planting crops every other. So we can have like a cornfield, and then we can have alfalfa, and then we can have corn again. We can look at contour farming, which is when you're on a hillside, you're making sure that you're cropping crossways on the slope and you're not driving up and down on those slopes planting your corn rows. We could use vegetative strips or buffers or other hard practices. Okay, the next one I want to talk about here today is the phosphorus index. The phosphorus index is calculated by estimating the average runoff phosphorus delivery from each field to the nearest surface water in a given year, given the soil's conditions, the crops in the rotation, the tillage practices, manure and fertilizer applications planned, and then additionally long-term weather patterns. So there's a bunch of different factors that are going in and calculating out the phosphorus index for us. One thing to remember is that the phosphorus index is reported as a whole number. The higher the number, the greater the likelihood that that field is contributing phosphorus to local water bodies. It's important that during our rotation, our P index is at or below 6 in order to be able to apply manure to a field. In a single given year, though, you can have a P index of above 6 and still be deemed compliant as long as your rotational P index stays at or below 6. Okay, so as long as you have, let's say you have a 4-year rotation, and in your rotation, one of your years is at a 10 for a phosphorus index, that is still going to be deemed compliant as long as within that 4-year rotation, the average phosphorus index is at or below a 6. If for some reason your field is at a phosphorus index of 12 or above, you are no longer allowed to apply manure to that field. Okay, so 12 is that threshold. Once you hit 12, you're no longer allowed to apply manure to that field. All right, let's talk a little bit about what we can do to achieve a good phosphorus index. Well, again, we can do all of the things that we mentioned before that alter T, but we can also make sure to strategically apply our phosphorus applications, minimizing our surface applications and timing it so that the nutrient is available when the plant needs it and when the plant wants to uptake it. We should also strive to keep our soil test phosphorus levels in the optimum range. We need to make sure that we're calculating crop removal and making sure that we're not making applications that exceed our soil test recommendations. All right, the last measurement that I want to touch on here this morning is the Soil Conditioning Index, better known as SCI. SCI predicts the impact of a cropping rotation on surface soil organic matter. The SCI is calculated using the amount of crop residue and manure returned to the soil during our set rotations. It also incorporates the effect of tillage on organic matter decomposition, and then the predicted wind and water erosion that land location has associated with it. It's important to take note that the SCI can have a range from -2 to +2. Okay, negative numbers are showing a decrease in soil organic matter, whereas positive numbers are showing an increase in soil organic matter. The Soil Conditioning Index cannot be used, though, to predict the amount of rate of change of soil organic matter. So if you see, let's say a 1 in there for an SCI rating, it's not going to tell you that you're increasing your soil organic matter by 20% every year. There is no reference to how much during the rate of change that you're going to see. But it's just important to take note that the positive numbers are showing an increase in soil organic matter and the negative numbers are showing a decrease. Okay, so on the right-hand side of the screen here, I have another screenshot from the program. You can see I have SCI circled in a red circle here. In this example, my SCI is 0.3. It's a positive number, meaning that in this rotation, I am building soil organic matter. I'm just not sure exactly how much or the rate in which it's accumulating. So again, let's look at what can we do to improve our SCI. again, we're going to look at all of those practices that we've talked about before with bettering our T value and then also reducing our phosphorus index numbers. So that would be altering our crop rotations, reducing tillage practices, using conservation practices, and then also looking at some organic additions, whether that be manure, compost, or organic byproducts. Adding any of those into our system, you would hopefully see an increase to your soil organic matter. All right, one last section here before we jump into the SnapPlus program. I think it's important sometimes to touch on some of the manure management strategies and rules that we have to make sure that we're considerate of when we're making our nutrient management plans. The first thing I want to talk about are SWGMAs. Okay, what in the world is a SWGMA? Well, a SWGMA is a surface water quality management area. It acts as a buffer and limits manure applications within certain distances to lakes and streams. It's important because it's helping to reduce the potential for surface water contamination. So we have two different types of SWGMAs here. We have the 1,000-foot buffer that you will find around ponds or lakes, and then we have the 300-foot buffer that you're going to find around rivers and streams. Here is a quick snapshot. Again, this is from our SnapMaps program where we do our mapping within the SnapPlus program. Here you can see I have a couple fields outlined, DK3, DK4 there, kind of in the upper right corner. Let's look at those blue hash marks that are touching on the edges of both of those fields. So here we have the blue hash marks that are jutting to the upper left. That is the 300-foot SWGMA around a stream or a river. You can kind of see a faint little stream looking like thing there in the image. But then over to the far left side of the image, you're going to see blue hash marks that jut over into the upper right. That is indicative of a 1,000-foot buffer around a pond or lake. Okay, so it's important to take note where these SWGMAs fall within your fields. If you have a SWGMA within your field, there are a couple additional things that we need to consider if we're going to be applying manure in those areas. So if you would like to apply manure in a SWGMA, there's a couple things that we need to do. First of all, we must make sure that we're using one or more of the following. So we either need to install and maintain vegetative buffers or filter strips. We need to maintain greater than or equal to 30% cover after our nutrient application. Or we could incorporate our manure within 3 days after the application, or we could plant a crop prior to, at, or immediately after the manure application. Additionally, we need to be making sure that we're limiting our unincorporated applications of liquid manure, so 11% or less of dry matter, to 12,000 gallons to the acre or less, okay? We want to make sure that we can do sequential applications, but we want to make sure that during those sequential applications, we're not over applicating our nutrients. So we want to make sure that we're not going to exceed our crop nutrients need and that we're just, kind of meeting our crop need. It's important to also make sure that we're waiting at least 7 days between our applications. If a runoff or tile discharge event is seen, it's important to stop all applications and then report that manure runoff or spill to the DNR so that they can then take action at that point in time to assist you in that process. All right, so we were talking about SWGMA manure applications in non-winter frozen soil time. Let's talk a little bit about what does it look like to apply manure to SWGMAs in the winter. It's easy. You can't do it, okay? So if you have a SWGMA in your field and you would like to apply manure to that field in the winter when the ground is frozen and you cannot effectively incorporate manure into the ground, you are not allowed to apply manure within that SWGMA area, okay? You can still have your animals out there gleaning or pasturing on that SWGMA area, and they're allowed to dispose of their manure however they see fit. But it's important to remember that in SWGMA areas during the winter, you are not able to mechanically apply manure. All right, so again, let's use DK3 for an example here. Anywhere that you're seeing those blue hash marks within that field boundary is an area in which you are not allowed to apply manure in the winter. Okay, you can apply to the rest of the other parts of the field, but you cannot apply where there are the blue hash marks. Other things to take into consideration are wells and other conduits to groundwater. So when you have a conduit to groundwater, which could be a well, sinkhole, swale, fractured bedrock at the surface, no mechanical applications of manure are allowed within 50 feet of those direct conduits to groundwater. Again, you can pasture or glean your animals in that area, but it's the requirement that no mechanical applications of manure take place within 50 feet of direct conduits to groundwater. We have a couple other different types of conduits to groundwater that have some more specific rules. If you have a community potable water well, so a municipal well nearby one of your fields, you are not allowed to apply manure within 1,000 feet of that well. If you have a non-community potable water well, so a church well or a school or a restaurant, you have a 100-foot buffer around that well that you are not allowed to apply manure. Unless you specifically treat your manure to eliminate pathogens, then you are able to apply manure within those areas. It's still something you really do not want to mess with, in the sense that if something happens where you do not significantly eliminate pathogens, we could definitely have some problems. So it's something that you can look into if it's something that you really do need some land to spread on. But again, it's something that comes with a potential high risk of contamination. So something to be very cautious of. Let's talk a little bit about late summer or fall manure applications. Okay, so if we're going to be doing late fall or late summer or fall manure applications, we need to make sure that we're limiting our rates to either 90 or 120 pounds of N per acre. Our rate is going to depend on the dry matter of the manure, the crop that you're applying to, or the crop that you're applying manure for in the next growing season. And the types of restricted soil types that we have. So we have P soils, those are considered to be highly permeable soils. Those are the horizontal gold bars that you see in the upper right corner. We have W soils, those are wet soils where the water table is less than 12 inches to the surface. Those are the gold vertical bars that you see across kind of the middle of the screen. And then we have R soils. R soils are where the depth to bedrock is less than 20 inches to the surface. And those are where we have those kind of chunky gold blocks that you can see sporadically on this image. Where you have the solid kind of gold color polygons across the screen, that's indicative of depth to bedrock being less than 5 feet to the surface. If you have these restrictive areas within your field boundaries, you're going to see that we do have some limitations to how much manure we can be putting out. So before I go into reading this whole spiel, I want to make sure that you guys do not feel overwhelmed. The one amazing thing about SnapPlus is that it takes all of these rules and requirements into consideration, and it helps us throughout our planning process and reminds us that, hey, we have a pea soil here. Therefore, we need to make sure that we're reducing our nutrient application on this field during the late summer and fall months. So that's the one amazing thing about the SnapPlus program, is that it kind of helps us and guides us along on our planning journey. But I do think it's important to still take the time to kind of go through some of these rules and just have them, in the back of your head, so that when you are planning, you're not constantly running into over applications. You kind of have a good idea of what is going to be allowed and what isn't allowed in certain restricted areas. Okay, so quickly, for late summer or fall manure applications with greater than 4% dry matter on W or W combination soils, we're going to be limiting our application to either 120 pounds of available N, or looking at rates in A2809. A2809 is the field and vegetable book for the state of Wisconsin. It has all of our fertility recommendations that we base our nutrient management program off of. And so that is what A2809 is. On P and R soils, if you have established cover crops or an overwintering annual crop or a perennial crop, you're going to limit your rate to either 120 pounds of available N, or again, looking at rates from A2809, whichever is less. For annual crops that aren't going to be planted into the spring or summer, we need to make sure that we're delaying our applications until soil temps are less than 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Why? Well, at that point in time, our microbes in our soil are starting to go to sleep. They're not nearly as active. That means they're not working as hard to convert our nutrients into an available form called nitrate, where our nitrates could then, kind of leach through our soil profile on our permeable soils. So it's important to make sure that we're waiting until the soil temps are at less than 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to limit our rates to either 120 pounds of available N, or again, look at rates from A2809, whichever is less. All right, so the last one we talked about was manure applications with greater than 4% dry matter. Here we're going to talk about very, very liquidy manures. So manures where the dry matter is less than or equal to 4%. Here we're going to see a little bit stricter rules. So on W or W combination soils, we need to limit to either 90 pounds of available N, or we can use 120 pounds of available N, but we must do one of the following. So we're either going to apply on an established cover crop or an overwintering annual crop. We can use a nitrification inhibitor. We can establish a cover crop within 2 weeks of that manure application. We can surface apply the manure and then not incorporate for at least 3 days. Or 5, we can delay application until after the soil temperature is less than 50 degrees. So again, you can apply up to 120 pounds, but you do need to do one of the following out of that list of 5. On P&R soils, limit applications to 120 pounds of available N. Delay applications again until soil temps are less than 50 degrees. We want to make sure that we're going to either use a nitrification inhibitor or surface apply and then not incorporate for at least 3 days. Okay. I talked a little bit about winter earlier of really what qualifies as a winter application. Again, it's important to take note that it's when the temperature or snow prevents effective incorporation of manure. So I would say that if you looked outside right now, it would be very difficult to probably incorporate manure at this time for most of the state, if not all of the state. So at this point in time, I would say that we are would be making winter applications. So during the winter, manure applications cannot exceed the phosphorus removal of the following growing season's crop. We need to make sure that we're limiting all winter manure applications to 60 pounds of P2O5 per acre or less. We're going to limit our liquid applications of manure to 7,000 gallons per acre. And then our previous buffer of 50 feet around private wells and other conduits to groundwater has now grown to a 300-foot buffer. Okay, so in the winter, we cannot apply within 300 feet of direct conduits to groundwater. All right, that is the PowerPoint portion of today's presentation. Do we have any questions specifically on anything that we went through here in this presentation that we should address before getting into the SnapPlus part? I don't see anything in the chat. I am going to change my screen here so that it makes it a little bit easier for me when I'm demonstrating in SnapPlus. All right. So without any questions, let's dive on in to SnapPlus. All right. So when you open up the SnapPlus program, if you have used SnapPlus before, it is going to open up to the previous SnapPlus database that you were working on. So this example here is a WABA example manure farm that I use for training purposes. And so this is the last farm that I was in, and then this is the one that automatically pops up. If I want to create a new database, I'm going to navigate up to the upper left corner, click on the File button, and then click on New SnapPlus Farm. Here, I'm going to be able to type in a new name for my database. This generally is the farm name that you put in here in this section. An important thing to take note is above, you can see where SnapPlus is automatically saving my data, my database, and that's on the C drive. I highly suggest that that is where you use to store your databases. It works off of a flash drive, but it's so slow. And I'm just not patient enough for that. And you can run into some bugs and glitches with doing that. So it's just important to make sure that you are utilizing the C drive if you want to use it as smoothly and quickly as possible. So again, you can always look up at the top of the screen in this green bar to see where your database is saved that you're working in. So I'm going to click accept. Again, this is going to generate a whole new database for a new farm that I'm going to be working on here today. Alrighty, so as you can see, my farm name is training because that is what I entered in when I generated my new farm database. But we're going to be working through these tabs here across the top. So the first one that we're in is the farm tab. And once we get through here, we're just going to slowly move through the rest of these tabs across the top of the program. One other thing before we get too far into things, I want to talk about this save snapshot. Currently, the way SnapPlus works, we are not able to necessarily go back or have an undo button. The one thing that we can do though is save a snapshot. This is going to save the farm at that exact point in time. Okay, and so if you go through and do a big change or a big edit and all of a sudden you realize that it was not correct, if you saved a snapshot before that big change, you would be able to revert back to that point in time. Okay, so that's our one option for an undo button in the SnapPlus program. So it's an important one to take note. Another thing to consider, I am very, very prone to forgetting to save my Word documents as I'm typing up a report or working through Excel. I always forget to click save. SnapPlus is awesome. It's automatically saving as we're working through and changing things. So that's really, really handy. If you are absolutely terrified about losing information, you can come over to File and click Save Farm. It's not going to hurt anything. It gives you a peace of mind that you clicked save. Go for it, utilize it. I know I use it sometimes as well. Other things, if you are curious of you took a snapshot and you want to know where you can find it so you can revert back to it, you can come down and click on File and then revert to last snapshot. That's going to bring you back to that last place in time in which you took a snapshot. Okay. Again, if you ever want to change in the farm that you're working in, you can go to your recents and see all of the different databases that you've been working in, or you can go to open a SnapPlus farm and it'll navigate to my C drive where I have all of my different databases that I work in, and I would be able to click on one of these and then open, and it will open that new farms database. Okay. A couple other fun little features that I think kind of get forgotten about. There's this fun little plant over here. This brings us to the cropping screen. Okay, it shows us, I'll click on it. I don't have anything selected, so it's not going to show you anything right now. But when we get our farm built, we'll come back and we'll look at this. This shows us our previous year's cropping information. It shows us our current planning year's cropping information, and we're able to look at all of our fields on one page. So it can be really, really slick for some quick updates, whether that be updating previous things that happened or updating our current nutrient management plan. We can also click on this little wheat head here, this orange button. This brings up our nutrient applications by season. So if you have a farm that has a lot of manure applications taking place, you're able to come in here and look at the specific years. You're able to look at your nutrient type, the source, and then how much you're applying during those seasons. Okay. I think that's enough for our housekeeping right now. The one last thing I guess I will mention is the help menu. That is up here in the top gray bar right next to that orange wheat head. The help contents are so helpful. If you ever have a question, they have done a wonderful job with the help so that you can come in here and search for different things. And generally, you're going to probably find the answer to your question. If not, do not hesitate to reach out through our support email. One of us will be glad to help you through any and all questions that you might have. Other things to take note in this help section is there's a bunch of different reference docs. So we talked about that 590 standard. That's NRCS's standard for nutrient management planning. We talked about our A2809 document. This is where we're going to find all of our fertility guidance for our crops. And then down here, we have other reference documents. One thing that I always like to point people to is our template soil test import. So for some reason, let's say you don't get a digital copy of your soil test results and you just have a PDF, you can come down here and use this CSV template, and you can enter in all the soil data so that it can automatically be imported into the SnapPlus program at another time. But if you're ever bored and you want to look through and find a bunch of different resources, there's a bunch of stuff in here that are, is really going to help you. If you ever have problems with your database, bugs, glitches, and you're working with support, and we ask you to send a syslog, you can come here to the help and click view syslog, and then that's going to allow you to take a screenshot of that log, and you'd be able to send that to support for further help and guidance. All right, let's start planning, okay? First thing here is we have this general information section, okay? We have address, city, phone numbers, email. I get the question all the time, do I need to fill this in? No, you don't have to, but SnapPlus is super, super great and pulls all of the information that we put in the plan and spits it out into our 590 compliance checklist, okay? So the less time that you want to spend on your checklist, I suggest entering the information in here so that then the information gets put on your checklist, one less thing you have to worry about at the end. We today are going to talk about 590 farms. 590 farms are all of the farms that are not considered CAFOs, so confined animal feeding operations. They are required to have a permit from the DNR to operate. They have additional restrictions and guidance. If you wanted to write a nutrient management plan for a CAFO, you would click this button right here that says WPDES permitted farm. That turns on those additional restrictions and those extra guidance messages. Today, we are not going to do that. We're going to work on the smaller side of things. We're going to work on the 590 farms. SnapPlus allows us to choose whether we want to credit our manure. It's automatically set so that it does not use second or third year manure credits. Feel free to select, kind of whatever the farm is willing to take credit for. If you're operating in the sands of Wisconsin, I truly do not see that you're going to see a second year manure credit. Sadly, that is probably going to leach through our sands. But if you have heavier soils, please, please, please make sure to utilize these features. We have this orange button down here that says document spreader calibration methods. We need to click on that and come in here and identify the way in which they are calibrating their manure spreading equipment. Okay, so are we doing custom applications, equipment calibration, or do we know the amount of manure that we've applied on this specific amount of acres? I'm just going to say equipment calibration for today and click accept. Now that orange button goes away. And whenever I navigate away from the farm tab, I won't get a pop-up message reminding me that I need to set my calibration method. All right, now it's important to select our crops that we're going to be utilizing today. One thing I always like to mention, only select the crops that you're actually going to be using in the plan. There is no need to move all of the crops over. It's going to slow things down. It's going to cause you headaches as you're trying to filter through, because let me tell you, there are a lot of crop options, and you can sit here and look and find all of the fun ones that you can kind of play around with in here. But again, I suggest only adding the ones that you're going to be utilizing. So if you find a crop that you want to use in your plan, you're going to click on it. It's going to highlight blue, and you're going to use this little arrow to push it over to the selected crop side. Once it's over here on the selected crop side, you will be able to see it within your plan. Okay, there's another fun little button here called add default crops. It's a nice quick way to add some of the most common crops that we see in our nutrient management plans here in the state. And it's just a nice one-click easy button. If for some reason I am not going to be ever baling stalks in my cornfields, I can click this and I can move it back over individually. If I wanted to move all of the crops, which I do not suggest that you do, but if you wanted to, you can use the double arrow button, and that will throw all of the crops over here on the selected crop side. All right, let's navigate over to the upper right corner of the program. We have our farm narrative. This is where I like to see the story of the farm. Tell me a little bit about this farm. We have 300 acres. We are a 70 cow dairy. We graze our heifers, we daily haul our manure, or we have a manure pit. If we have a manure pit, we don't do any winter spreading. We have corn silage, corn, alfalfa rotation. We use no-till whenever possible. All of those fun little tidbits that really truly do tell the story about the farm. When I'm sitting down and working with farmers, that's kind of the first question I ask them. So, tell me your story. What do you got going on here? And as they're talking through and telling me things, I'm taking notes and kind of building this farm narrative so that when you turn the plan into someone at the county level, to review your plan and make sure that everything's kind of kosher, they're able to look at this farm narrative and really get a good understanding of what's going on this operation. Annual notes for the crop year. As a nutrient management plan writer, this is an awesome section to kind of leave notes for yourself and or for the farmer. So let's say we run into a couple fields where we're struggling to meet T. So our soil loss is too high. We can make notes in here saying that we really need to look at the field behind the house and look at a different rotation. We need to look at some different tillage on this field. We can document that, hey, we didn't pull enough soil samples from the field across the house. We're going to make sure that we do that this upcoming spring. Notes like that, fun reminders that you're like, okay, this is something that isn't necessarily a problem right now, but it's going to be in the future. We need to jump on this and solve it now before it gets to be too big. The next thing that we're going to do is select the counties in which our field locations are for this operation. I'll just select Adams since it's the first one here on the list. It works the same way as selecting our crops. I highlight it blue by clicking it. I move the caret arrow to throw it over here on the selected county side. I hear the question already. Can we have multiple counties in the same plan? Yes, most definitely you can. If for some reason you want to do Adams and let's say they're also farming in Marquette, you can select Marquette County and throw that over. And now you will have Adams and Marquette as the selected counties within your plan. Totally okay. It'll just be making sure that you report acres both to Adams County Land Conservation staff as well as to the Marquette Land Conservation staff. All right. This is the farm tab. It's just a lot of time spending entering information and kind of prepping for the work that we have yet to do within our plan. Okay, as long as I'm not hearing or seeing any questions, Isabel, please stop me if something comes through the chat. I'm going to move on to the soil test tab. Okay, I talked a little bit about it earlier. Up here in this help menu, going to these reference docs, you can come down here and find the template soil test import. Okay, I talked about that CSV file. You can come in here and you can hand enter in soil tests. I won't stop you, but I will advise you that there is a much quicker way, and I do not want you to get frustrated or upset that you have to hand enter in data because you do not have to. We're going to look at using this import soil test button. Okay, we're going to click on that. It's going to open up our file explorer, and then we need to navigate to where we are going to find our SnapPlus soil test data. And I believe I put it in here in my SnapPlus data, and I have my 2022 soil data file. Okay, I'm going to click on that and I'm going to click open. It's going to take all of that information from that Excel document that has all of my soil test information in it. It has my field names, it might have my acreage associated with the fields and the soil test results. It's going to take that and it's going to come in here and it's going to pull all that information into the SnapPlus program. So I have a pop-up here. It says new fields are going to be created for fields 1, 2, 3, and 4. Great. I am making a new plan. I want to see new fields generated. If you were working on an update plan, and if you were coming in here and uploading new soil sample results for fields that you already have in your plan, and you get this pop-up message, stop. If you continue, you are going to generate duplicate fields and you are going to have a mess. And I know it happens a lot. I know it's very frustrating, but if for some reason in 4 years you come back in soil sample, let's say field 1, and you call it field no space, and then the number 1, it's going to be identified as a different field in the program versus field space 1. Okay, so it's so important to make sure that we're matching our field names before we're importing our soil data. Have no fear. At that point in time, if you get to this point and you see that you've messed up or there's some little mistake in the field name, you can click on it here and it's not going to work because these are new fields within the program, but you would be able to click on this field name right here, and you would be able to retype in the correct field name. And any field that has field space 1 would then, there would be a pop-up and it would say, do you want to change all field space 1 to field no space 1? And I would click yes, and it would automatically update all of the samples for that field. So there is a one kind of quick save that you can do before pressing import down here at the bottom. So again, we can see all of our soil test data right here. I am now going to click import to SnapPlus. And it says, just be sure, fields 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to be new. Do you want to continue? Yes, I do. And then I'm going to just select that these fields are going to be in Adams County. I'm going to click OK. If you do not select multiple counties in the beginning, it will not have that pop-up message. But since I selected multiple counties, it was asking in which county these fields will fall. Have no fear. If one of your fields lands in Marquette County, we'll be able to fix that here in a little bit. Okay, we have another pop-up that says import was successful. We have 4 new fields, 4 total tests, 64 new samples. Awesome. We now have started building our plan, okay? Up here at the top, we now have this drop down where we can see our fields that we have added based on our soil test results. So as I'm toggling through these different fields, we're going to see the different soil test results pull up for each one of these fields. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. The next thing we're going to do is navigate to SnapMaps. SnapMaps is a wonderful tool that helps us map out our fields. Now, the first thing I did here when I navigated to SnapMaps was click upload. Why did I have to do that? Well, SnapPlus, the program in which we're writing our plans, lives on our computer, okay? So if the programmers go and have an update, you would have to go to the SnapPlus website and download that update to bring all of that new information to the SnapPlus program that's living on your computer. SnapMaps, the mapping portion of the program, lives on the cloud, so it's online. So what we're doing when we press upload is taking the information in our SnapPlus plan, pushing it up to the cloud so that SnapMaps can access it. Once we've clicked upload, then we click on the website button, and this is going to pull up our SnapMaps website, okay? So now it's going to have all these fun pop-up messages letting me know that I can change some different settings. I'm going to click OK. If you work in certain counties, if you're making plans in certain counties, it's important to come through here and read about these additional restrictive layers that you would find within here. There's different ordinances, there's different layers. Just take the time. You don't have to do it every single time, but if you're kind of new to planning and you want to figure out, okay, I'm writing a plan in Door County for the first time, are there any additional restrictions that I need to be considerate about? Yes, there are. Okay, so since I selected Adams and Marquette County as the counties in which I'll be putting my fields, it automatically zoomed into those areas for me on SnapMaps here. The first thing that I want to do is zoom in and navigate to where my fields are going to be for this SnapPlus nutrient management plan. I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to identify my fields. All right. So I've zoomed in, I've identified that this is going to be my first field. I'm going to navigate over to my drawing tools. I'm going to come down, click on draw a feature, and then go over to field. Once I have done that, you'll see that this blue bar across the top says that there's an active tool, draw fields. And now I have this blue little dot that's following my mouse all around. I'm going to plot my first point by clicking. And now you can see I have a line following me. I'm going to plot another point. And I'm just slowly going to go around the field boundary. And I'm going to document with clicks where I would like the field polygon to lay. All right. If you mess up, like what I just did, that's okay. We will try again. So I was trying to drag my screen and I lifted my mouse click too soon, and therefore it ended my polygon before I wanted it to. So I'm going to quickly come through here, draw my polygon. come all the way up and come down. And the way to close the polygon is by clicking on the point in which you originally started plotting your points. Now it'll turn gold, and then you're able to come in here and select the new field name. This is going to be field 1. I'm going to click save the field. And now I have my new field boundary around field 1. That is one way to get field boundaries imported into the SnapPlus program, is by drawing them by hand. A couple additional features that we have here, we have draw a feature and then field with common land unit. So when I think of this, I think of kind of the western part of the state where you can see a lot of strips of fields. This can be very, very helpful when you have lots of tiny little strips running across the field that you're trying to map out by hand. Sometimes this tool works awesome. Sometimes it's a little finicky. So what it does is it allows you, once you have this tool active, to click anywhere on the fields that you're wanting to map, as long as it does it, and it will identify the common land unit. So you can see here that this field is a nice little circle. Must be a little pivot on this field, but it's not actually capturing that properly. Is this going to be helpful to me? Yeah, sure, let's try it. So we'll call this one field 2. I'm going to save it. Now I have this field boundary that's not exactly correct, but thankfully I can come into my drawing tools. I can click edit features, edit field, and now I'm going to click on the field that I want to edit. I'm able to come and move these little polygon points, and all I'm doing is clicking on these points and dragging them to where I actually want them to be. And I can edit my boundary of my field by just clicking on these different vertices that exist within this line. And now I have a new polygon in which looks a lot better than that original square. I'm going to click Save Field. And that's another way in which you can draw your field boundaries. One other way that can be super helpful, especially if you are a private agronomist or you're working for a co-op and you have access to polygons within your mapping software and programs that you utilize, you can export those shape files and import them into Snap Maps. So if that is something that you would be interested in doing, you would come to drawing tools, import a shape file, and then select fields, and then make sure that you're selecting a zip file, okay? So you would come in here, it would automatically open up to your last file folder. You would navigate to where you store your shape files. You would click open, and you're able to go in here and upload your field boundaries from a shapefile. It is super helpful if you have the fields already mapped. It's super helpful if you have lots of fields that you're going to have to map. It's also helpful in the sense that generally, if you have your fields mapped, those are the boundaries in which you're soil sampling according to. So you're going to pull a certain amount of soil samples based on that acreage that you have mapped. It's important then to utilize that same acreage within your plan so that you have enough soil samples when you go to run your compliance check. All right. So additionally, we can come in here and click on draw a feature, and we can also draw a couple other things. We can draw exclusion areas. So if for some reason I included this little pond within my field polygon, I would be able to come in here and make another little polygon and say that, you know, this is water. I'm going to save this as an exclusion area, and then it's no longer being farmed or part of my field. Other things that I can do for drawing features, I can come in here and document concentrated flow channels. I can come in here and plot specific points. These points you can document as wells, irrigation wells, public wells, sinkholes, tile inlets and outlets. Let's document our private drinking wells. So you're going to probably be like, how in the world are you going to know where those are? Well, if there's a house out in the middle of nowhere, I have a good assumption that there's probably going to be a well there for them. So what I'm going to do is zoom into any areas in which I see houses nearby to my fields, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to plot where I think their well could be. Again, we're going to see that 50-foot buffer around there in which we're not allowed to apply manure. That is very far away from our field boundary here, so we're not going to see any additional restrictions until potentially the winter if this is less than 300 feet to my field boundary. I'm going to zoom back out here. Let's say that this field, it does have a irrigation pivot system on there. We can come in here and we can document the irrigation well. And I have no idea if it's here. I would have a better idea if I was working with this farmer, but I'm able to click on where I believe the well to be, and it will plot a point for that irrigation well. Once I'm done plotting all of my different wells and features, I'm going to click Stop Creating Points. And now my tool is just navigation, so I'm just able to kind of move around. You can also come in here and delete features. So just as you're drawing or you're editing your features, you're able to come in here and delete them just the same. I can spend a lot of time going through this stuff, but it's fun just for you guys to kind of go through and experiment a little bit. But the big things that you need to know about are drawing fields. You can use this common land unit to adopt generic boundaries around fields, and then you can go through and edit them. You can come in here and document specific exclusion areas, that maybe areas that aren't going to be farmed in your fields. Document your concentrated flow channels, so grass waterways. Come in here and document your points. Those could be wells, sinkholes, tile inlets or outlets. And then if you have manure stacking sites, you can document those. And you can come in here and actually set your own prohibited features by buffering, whether it's a wetland feature or an area in which you don't want manure spread and you want to just be able to generate manure maps. Okay, quickly over here on the left-hand side of the screen, we have all of our layers within our maps. We talked about our swigmas earlier. This is where we would be able to check them and turn them on, and we would be able to start seeing these features coming alive on our maps. So here on field 1, we do have a swigma, 1,000-foot buffer down in the southern part of the field. Over here in the northwest corner, we have another one that's creeping in. This little field 2 doesn't have one, but if we map out this field, it would have a swigma. Quickly, I can easily turn on and off all restrictive layers, excuse me. And when I do that, you're going to start seeing a bunch of different layers start turning on here. So we have these horizontal gold bars. Those are indicative of highly permeable soils. So in Adams County, we have lots of sandy soils. So that's why I'm seeing those restrictions. This would limit our late summer or fall manure applications on these fields. As we kind of scroll through, you're going to see a bunch of different layers. Feel free to spend some time playing around in here and turning stuff on and really kind of seeing what is all in here, because there's a lot of information. One thing that can be really, really helpful if you have a really big farm that you're working on, or you might not know field locations very well, you can use this zoom to all fields to kind of zoom out and see the farm full picture. Or you can come in here and specifically select which field you'd like to zoom to. So I'm going to select field 1, and it automatically pulls me right to that field 1 polygon. So that's a really, really helpful feature. So we're here in the map legend. You can come up here and use this PDF creation and make maps. Sometimes things are a little finicky, I'm not going to lie, and it can be frustrating to get the image that you want on your map to be the image that is actually produced. I suggest using the snipping tool on your computer to come in here and create a little snapshot and then throw it on a Microsoft Word page. And you can really kind of make your maps more specific and they fit in a little bit better. Other things I want to chat about before we leave the Snap Maps tab here, field properties. Once you have your plan built and you have a bunch of information in here, this is a really, really neat tab to come play around in. We can come in here and let's do this on our soil test P. It's going to pull in our soil test P values that we've imported, and it's going to make a map for 2023, which again, we don't have planned just yet, but if we did, you would see, like, let's say I have excessively high phosphorus, you would see red all across this map. If I had low phosphorus, you would see these light blue or, kind of dark blue colors. So it's a fun little feature that you can do to kind of help identify where there is there's some need potentially for fertilizer applications, or you could look at, all of these different factors and just kind of play around and see what's there. Field list. Once you have your crop information planned, you would be able to see all of your crop information here in this list, and it will list all of your fields. All right. Again, there's a nice help menu here over on the right-hand upper corner. You're able to just click on the help menu, and that will pull up the help menu specific to SnapPlus. All right. Well, I might get evacuated from my building, everybody. There's some crazy alarms going on, so I'm going to keep going until I'm told to leave, and then we might have to take a pause. I apologize for that. So I'm going to come down here to my SnapPlus database again. And now that we've done all that work in the cloud up in the internet, we need to bring that information back down into our SnapPlus plan. So to do that, I'm going to click on this green download button. That's pulling all of the information from our SnapMaps program back into our SnapPlus database, okay? It's going to say here as a quick note, there's going to be some differences on the SnapMap restrictions or the SnapMap acres tab. Make sure you take a peek at those and don't forget to import those changes if necessary. Okay, awesome. Thanks for the reminder. All right, so here I am. Let's go to my SnapMaps field tab. Generally, that's what pops up first, but since I was playing around in the program earlier, I was on SnapMap restrictions last. But in our SnapMap Fields tab, you can see all of this fun gold and kind of orange colors. This is indicative of new information that the SnapPlus program did not have before. This is new information that we pulled in from SnapMaps, and we're going to be putting into our plan to help us meet compliance. So it's pulled in our soil information, it's pulled in the slopes of those fields, it's pulled in the distance to water. Awesome. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to click import highlighted cells. That's going to pull all of that information now into the database. It's going to be using that information to verify compliance. It says, don't forget to go to the restrictions tab. Okay, take me there. I'll click yes. Now we have a couple restrictions here. So field 1 has a SWGMA. Field 1 also has an irrigation well in there. So we need to import those features as well. I'm going to come down here again and click import highlighted cells. And now they are no longer orange. And so that tells me that they are imported and that information is now captured within my plan. All right. That's a lot of information here on the SnapMaps tab. But we've done a lot of groundwork. So that's really, really awesome. You can see here that when I entered in my soil test data, there was 4 fields that I sampled. So I didn't map the remaining 2 fields, and that's why it's showing this orange, because there isn't any soil information that the program could import. All right, we're done with SnapMaps. We're going to move on to the Fields tab. What can you do on the Fields tab? Well, you can do a couple different fun things, but the one kind of important thing that comes to mind is this active button. Let's say you're working with a farmer who rents land and their rental agreements change throughout the years. Let's say he's, rented this field in 2022, but for 2023, he's not going to be running those acres. You would be able to come in here and click this little checkbox to inactive. And now this field 3 will no longer be in the plan. So when I go in here and I look at my drop down, once I leave this tab, field 3 will no longer be an option up here for me to choose, so that I will not have to make plans for that specific field. If for some reason, all of a sudden, we're going to be using field 3 again, I can check this box and it will bring it back to being an active field. Let's leave it unchecked for now. If for some reason a field is never going to be in the plan again, or for some reason you misentered information and you made a field that shouldn't be added in, you are able to highlight that and then click on the red minus button to delete that field if you so choose. If you do use the feature where you're documenting active and inactive fields, you can choose to show inactive fields or hide inactive fields. And then that removes field 3 from my screen since I no longer want to see my inactive fields. If you decide to go out and verify slopes on your own, you are able to come in here and edit that information. This information is based off of NRCS's soil data, and so it's automatically pulled in from the soil data information from SnapMaps. If you do not agree with it, or if you want to speak to your county land conservation department to help verify what your slopes actually are within those fields, you can do that. You can edit those numbers by clicking on the cell that you want to change, and you can type in a different percentage. And then once you do that, it's very, very important to mark verified. When you mark verified, that locks that information in. So when you're uploading and downloading information from SnapMaps, it's not going to override this information on you. It's going to keep what you've put in there. It's going to keep it safe. So important to remember to click verified. And then also it's really, really handy to write field notes in here. You can say that it was September 2022 verified with county staff, or something of the sort, so that we can see in here what the story is as to why it was verified. So I'll click verified here. And again, that locks this information in so that it does not change when I'm uploading and downloading information from SnapMaps. We won't spend any time on this today, but if you have really big farms that you're working on, you can come in here and build sub-farms and kind of work with the group builder within the program. Really awesome features, but they're not necessary to write a plan, so we're not going to talk about them today. One thing I want to point out as we're moving along, if you happen to see any of this blue text, that is hyperlinked, and you're able to click on it, and it's going to pull up the help menu, and it's going to pull up that exact topic within the help menu. So helpful, especially when we get to the cropping screen and we're talking about our tillage practices, and you have no idea which tillage to select. You can click on the blue text next to the tillage practices, and it'll pull up the different list of tillage practices and go into more detail of them for you. All right, let's move on to the nutrients screen. We're starting to get a little bit closer to the meat and potatoes of the plan. This is where we're going to come in and add our nutrient sources. So on this operation, I'm going to come in and add my fertilizer. So we're going to have some urea. I'm going to click on that product, click OK. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to find my potassium chloride, my potash, click OK. I'm just going to continuously click on the green plus button to make sure I have all of the fertilizers that I would like. If for some reason you add one that you don't want, you can use that red minus button to come in here and delete it very, very easily. If for some reason SnapPlus does not have the correct fertilizer that you would like to see, you can come up here and select new fertilizer. Click OK. We're going to enter the fertilizer's name. I'm going to call this my starter. I'm going to say it's a dry starter, and let's say it's 10, 10, 10. I can document whether this has a slow release or a nitrification inhibitor as a part of it. I'm going to click OK. And now down here at the bottom, my starter has been added, and it's exactly as I wanted, 10, 10, 10. Awesome. So that takes care of the commercial fertilizer side of things. Let's talk a little bit about manure. Manure is so much fun. I love the manure production estimator tool. This really, really helps us to identify how much manure is going to be produced based on the amount of animals they have on their operation. So if they're a dairy operation, you can click add all dairy, and that's going to add in all of the different dairy animal options that we have in here. Again, if for some reason you don't have this, let's just say you don't have the dry cows that are this large, you can click and use the control click, or nope, you can't. You can only delete one at a time. I was lying to you guys. I apologize. So highlight the one you don't want, and you can come in here, use the red minus, and delete that one. All right, let's talk about how many calves we have. Let's say we have 20 calves, and their manure is going to be collected and spread 100% as a solid. And I'm really only going to have these 20 calves for, let's just say 180. Well, I guess we're going to say 190 days. Let's talk about heifers. How many heifers do we have? Let's just keep it simple. Let's do 10 heifers. We're going to have those 365 days of the year, and that is going to be 100% collected and spread as a solid. Once we get down to our dairy lactating cows, let's just say we have 70 of those and we have 30 of those. 100% of their manure is going to be collected and spread as a liquid. So as I'm coming through here and entering in this information, it's automatically updating the amount of manure that my farm is producing. So it's producing the tonnage and it's producing the gallons. So once I have done this and I feel satisfied with documenting all the animals on my operation, I'm going to come back to the nutrient sources tab. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to enter in these numbers. So I greatly apologize. My memory is horrendous. So I'm going to copy this number. I'm going to come back to nutrient sources. I'm going to use the green plus button. I'm going to use the drop down. I'm going to find my dairy liquid manure. Once I have this in here, I need to identify the amount of manure. I'm going to right click on this and click paste. So now I have that calculated amount of manure that I knew I was going to have entered in here. I need to come in here and add my dairy solid pack for my calves and my heifers. You can see that the book values are automatically associated with these manures. If you do test your manure, you can change those based on your manure analysis. All right, and I have 159 tons of dry manure. So I'm gonna come in here, enter my 159. If you do sample your manure and your manure analysis comes back different than book values, you're able to click on that nutrient that you want to change and type in a different amount and alter that accordingly. Okay. All right. We can go into a little bit more detail, but I'm going to try to keep us moving along here. One last thing I will mention is the grazing herd setup. In my first couple of trainings here for the training season, I've been working with a lot of farmers who are dabbling a little bit more in grazing, especially on some of their dairy heifers. And so this tool is so amazing. I love it so much. You're able to come in here and build your specific herds. Okay, we're going to click on the green plus button, add a herd, and let's just call this, let's just call it our cow-calf pair. Okay, we're going to have beef. I'll click accept, and same type of thing. We're going to build our herd. We're going to build our cows, and let's say I have 10 beef cows on this farm as well, and I also have 10 calves that travel around with their moms. As I'm doing that, it's building this specific herd so that when I go to do my manure applications on my fields, I can apply this herd and I can calculate out just how much manure that they're spreading on the field based on the amount of time that they've spent in that field. So this herd produces 0.45 tons of manure per day. Pretty neat. Now that I have this built, when we go to our cropping tab and we start adding in our manure applications and our fertilizer applications, we can come back over here and add that. One thing, since I am going to do a grazing thing in here, let me find my beef grazing application and build that in here as well. Okay, the cropping tab. What am I missing? I'm missing field information for my soils because I did not map out my fields. That's okay. We will worry about that at another time. All right, field 1 and field 2, we did draw polygons for. So we're going to work in field 1 and field 2. Again, as I kind of stated, the cropping screen is where we're going to spend a majority of our time working through and building our plan. So you can see here that we're starting our planning year for 2023. So that's going to be this upcoming spring. That what crop are we going to be planting in field 1? Well, I'm going to be planting corn grain. What's my yield goal? I'm going to say 190 to 210. What tillage do I do? I'm going to do fall chisel, no disc. And again, I mentioned, if you weren't sure which tillage to pick, click on this blue text. It'll pull up the list of all of the tillage types and give you a good explanation of what each one of them is. All right, now that I have my crop, yield goal, and tillage, you can see my soil sample information is in here. Awesome. It's telling us, based on our soil sample data, how much nutrients we still need to put out on this field. So this looks like I have a high phosphorus testing field, 55 parts per million. That is high. So I have no phosphorus need for this corn crop. I still need 130 pounds of nitrogen and 60 pounds of potassium. So in order to meet that crop need, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add in some manure and some fertilizer. Let's start with my manure. I'm going to do my green plus button. I'm going to look at my dairy liquid. I'm going to click OK. And now I have this dairy liquid manure source added in as an application on this field. Let's do a spring application. Well, no, let's get tricky. Let's do a fall application. Why do I mean tricky? So we're doing a fall manure application for the year of 2023, for the cropping year of 2023. That means that a fall application in 2023 should have actually happened in the fall of 2022. Why? How does that make sense? Well, when we're applying manure, we're applying it so that we can receive the nutrients from that application to grow our crop. If you are going to apply manure after you've harvested a field, so let's say we've harvested here this past fall, we harvested our corn, and now we're going to go out and apply manure, that manure isn't necessarily going to be there to grow our previous crop that we already harvested. It's being applied so that we can take nutrients from that to grow our crop in 2023. So that is how we plan in SnapPlus. So if I did a fall application of manure this fall in 2022, it needs to be captured within our 2023 growing season to show that those nutrients from that manure are being put towards our corn crop that we're growing in 2023. That makes sense? It's kind of confusing, but again, fall applications, we need to identify what crop are these nutrients going to? Well, in fall of 22, those nutrients are going to our 2023 crop. Therefore, we need to include that manure application in our 2023 planning year. All right, I'll get off my soapbox for you guys. Again, dairy liquid, fall application. We're going to do an unincorporated application, and I'm going to come in here and, ooh, this is a beast of a field. Let's just say 10,000 gallons. I'm going to click apply. Across the top here, we have our tallies of how much manure we have for our farm. I had 888,000 gallons of liquid manure. That application of 10,000 gallons per acre on a 163 acre field is applying double of what the manure actually have available. So this is a nice tool up here. It actually shows us the annual volume that you're producing, planned applications, and then the remaining volume to help you figure out how much manure you still have left to plan. So I'm definitely not going to be able to apply all of this manure. Let's say I'm going to apply 4,000 gallons to the acre. We'll click apply. As I'm altering and changing the amount of manure I'm applying on these fields, you'll see these field over under application numbers change for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So you can see from this nutrient application of manure, I did gain some nitrogen credits because I was deficient 130. Now I'm deficient 98. I got 12 pounds of phosphorus from this manure application. And I can't remember what my potassium need was, but I did get some potassium from my manure application as well. I have a note down here that says this field has conditions that require running the Russell II erosion model to determine if one or more of the applications on this field follows the 590 standard. All right, well, I'll click calculate erosion and we'll make sure that we're still compliant. Yes, we are. So with our 4,000 gallon to the acre application of manure, we will still be deemed compliant. Now, we still have some nutrient need that we need to meet over here. Let's come in here and add in our fertilizer. So we have our starter, we're going to add in that. We have our urea, let's add in that. And then we have our potassium chloride, let's add in that. All right, our starter application is going to go at planting. So I'm going to have a spring application. It's going to be a subsurface application because it's going on at planting near the seed. And then, let's just say that I put out 100 pounds of starter. Okay, we'll just kind of keep it generic here. Then for my urea, I'm going to come out and I'm going to do a summer application. I'm going to come out and apply, we'll just say 100 pounds of urea. For my potash, that's going to go on in the spring. And I don't necessarily have a big potash need. So let's just put out 50 pounds of potash. I'm going to click apply. And again, we're going to monitor these nutrient numbers up here to see where we're at and what we're meeting for our crop need. So we've met and exceeded our crop need for phosphorus and potassium. We're still a little deficient on nitrogen. So I could increase my urea application to 200 pounds for my side dress and click apply and see that we would, be right there pretty perfect for our nutrient applications for nitrogen. Okay, things to consider. Did we over apply on our phosphorus? Yes, we did. Did we over apply on our potassium? Yes, we did. This is still going to be deemed a compliant application because we're allowed a little bit of leeway, a little bit of wiggle room, okay? So, if it's impossible for you to reduce your starter, this is allowed to have, 22 pounds of additional phosphorus going out. Just take note that there is some room for some cutting. So, we could say, well, since this field doesn't have a phosphorus need and I have other acres, let's get rid of our manure application. We'll click apply and we'll put out still, my 100 pounds of starter. But now maybe let's do another application of urea where we're only putting out a nitrogen source. And let's say that we're going to do this one kind of earlier in the spring. And let's just say we're going to put out 75 pounds of urea at that time. We're going to see our nutrient levels be a little bit more closer to leveling out to being zero. I'm not going to sit here and spend all of my time analyzing and trying to get to zero because that would just cause me an absolute headache. I want to see applications that are going to be feasible on their fields across their farm. A lot of farmers aren't going to want to change their fertilizer plan for each and every single field to meet their crop need based on their soil test information. I get that. I understand that. We want to make sure that we're making nutrient management plans that are going to be implemented. So therefore, you are going to see a little bit of over and under on your fields as you're working through and planning. All right. Let's get out of our nutrient application planner box. Let's come back here to our main screen. And now we can see that we have our fertilizer applications built in here. In my operation, I'm going to have corn on corn. Well, if I'm going to be entering in the exact same information, let's come up here and utilize this add copy delete years button. I'm going to come in here and click copy year. I want to copy forward to 2024. So I'm going to copy 2023, just the year 2023, because that's all the information I have. And I'm going to copy it to 2024. I'm going to click fertilizer because I want all of the fertilizer applications to follow with me when I copy this. And I'm going to click OK. What did this do? this copied all of the information from 2023 and added it directly to 2024. So it saved me a little bit of time, which is super, super nice. As if you go through and start to learn, there's a lot of, when there's a lot of fields, it can take you a long time to work through these plans and update them or build them in general. So I went through and I clicked add year. To be honest, I'm not quite sure why that inserted a year here. It should have inserted the year after my 2025 or my 2024, but anywho, so now I'm going to change this one to alfalfa seeding in the spring. I'm going to come in here and choose my yield goals. I'm going to choose my tillage practice, and since it inserted my crop year not where I intended it to be, I need to come in here and delete my fertilizer applications because these were for the corn year and not necessarily an alfalfa year. Delete all these, and then I'm going to click apply to update that, and then I'm going to click close. Okay, so now I have my alfalfa seeding year. I'm going to add in another year here where I'm going to add just a general year of alfalfa after my seeding year. So I'm going to update that to just alfalfa. I'm going to update my yield goal to be 5.6 tons to 6.5 tons, and then no tillage is going to happen. And then I'm going to come in here and copy. And since I'm going to have another year of alfalfa in my rotation, I'm going to copy year 2026 and I'm going to paste it to 2027. If I had fertilizer or manure applications, I would check those to make sure that those get copied over as well. I'm going to click OK. And now I have in my second year, or I should say my third year of alfalfa. Okay, I have one more year that I want to add in. I'm going to come in and use that copy feature again. And you can come in here and you can copy multiple years. So for instance, if I wanted to copy 2026 and 2027, I'd be able to paste that starting in 2028. And now I'm able to add in multiple years. So what could have taken me a little bit of time to plug and chug that information, I was able to build out a rotation here pretty quickly. So one thing to take note, you can see that this text is dark black here across the top. Here it's kind of faded out gray. That's because our rotation settings are not set correctly for this field yet to capture the entire rotation. What we need to do is come over here to the right-hand side of the screen and pick and choose which rotation settings we want to have set for this field. So in the very beginning, think back an hour and a half ago, and I talked about our rotation settings are what the program are. The years that we set within our rotation are the years that the program is analyzing for compliance. So we need to come in here and set our rotation for this field. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do a 7. Oops, I clicked 6. I didn't mean to do that. I apologize. Well, I guess 6 is fine. I generally wanted a 7 just to capture all of my years. So we'll just change that. So now all of these fields that were grayed out across the top are now black, indicating that they are within the rotation and they are being analyzed for our Russell II equation for our soil loss and then also our phosphorus index. If I wanted to verify, are my applications compliant in this rotation, I'm going to click calculate all years. That's going to run all of the equations in the background for us, and it's going to spit out some numbers over here on the far right side. So it's going to show us that our average soil loss on this field is 0.1 when it's tolerable to have a 5 ton. Our P index is a 0. We're not seeing much manure going out on this field, so that's to be expected. And I have a positive SCI indicating that there is going to be an increase in soil organic matter. So this field, with what I have planned currently right now, is a compliant field. We have, met our crop need, and we are sitting pretty good. We talked a little bit about where you could use contours or strip cropping. If this field was planted on the contour, I would select on the contour. That's going to change some of my calculations for soil loss and phosphorus index. If you have filter areas, you can document whether you have filter areas within the field or on the field edge. It's important to know what is considered a filter area. So make sure you click on the blue text to indicate, to navigate to the help menus so that you can better understand if you have filter areas within your field. All right. So what you do then from here on out is go through each and every field and do the exact same thing and build your rotation for each field. As you get going, there's a lot of different features, specifically the rotation wizard, that can help you speed up the process and not, sit here and have to do things individually for each field. You can build set rotations and copy and paste those in. You can build nutrient systems. So if you always have the same corn fertility plan, you can make a corn fertility plan and then apply that in. A lot of little tips and tricks that speed up the process. Later on, I will set a date to have an advanced training, and we can talk about some of those fun little wizard help buttons. But today we're just going to focus on the process and working through building things kind of step by step. So to save time, I'm not going to go through and build in field 2, but we'll work and get to our reports tab here at the end. Records. Yes, I have missing field data. I want to continue. The records tab is where you can document all of your manure application records for your fields. I do believe that this tends to get used more for CAFOs, but I do see farms that have a lot of manure using this feature as well. It can be really helpful. One thing I should mention is it's not just for manure, it's also for fertilizer and liming and grazing plans, but I would have to say that 98% of the time it is used for manure applications. This part is not a requirement of the program. It's here as a resource, as an additional tool to help you keep track of all of the information in your plan, but you do not need to enter anything in on this tab to complete the nutrient management plan. Okay, so since I have gaps, I'm going to get all of these errors in telling me I'm missing data. That's okay. We're just going to ignore them from right now. But what I want to show you guys are all of the reports, okay? The first one that we always tend to click on is the NM2 compliance check report. So what you do is you kind of double click on it. It opens up what years you want to analyze for compliance. I'm going to click OK. It's going to throw some errors up here and say that it doesn't have all the data that it needs to run the compliance check. That's fine. We'll just, cancel out of that. I just want to be able to show you guys how to run reports and how to check to make sure that you're meeting compliance. All right, so if you had all the information you needed inserted into the plan, you would not get this log error button. I'm just going to click close, and it should pull up, hopefully, for me a little something just so that we can see what we need. All right, so here's the compliance check report. It's documenting that I do not have any rotational problems found, but it is saying that fields 2 and 4 are missing information. It's also telling me that field 1, even though the soil tests are recent enough, I do not have enough samples. So according to the acres that I mapped in Snap Maps, I did not pull enough samples to be compliant with the 1 sample for every 5 acres. So I would have to come back in and either pull another sample or document in my narrative that I do know that I'm missing 1 sample or 3, 4, how many ever it is for field 1, and those will be pulled this upcoming fall. Field data and 590 assessment is a nice report that really kind of spits out all of the information in the plan and puts it on one little tiny graph for you. It's nice because it includes the phosphorus index as well as the T soil loss for each field. If you are looking to produce a report for a producer so that they know what information, or so that they know what nutrients they need to be applying on their fields. Coming down to farm management and looking at this FM3 producers plan is a really nice a product to utilize. It breaks down the fields field by field, and then it'll show manure and commercial fertilizer applications. It'll tell you the crop that you're growing, it'll tell you the crop need, and then it'll tell you the product in which you're applying, how much, when, and the method that you're applying it with. And then based on the acreage that you have in Snap Maps, it's going to tell you how much fertilizer you will need to apply 50 pounds to 163 acres of field. So that's a really, really nice, handy report. There's a bunch of other ones in here, and they are all really, really helpful and really great. There's the winter spreading plan. So if you're spreading manure in the winter, you need to make sure that we're running that. But one feature that I want to show you guys is this bulk reports button. If you click on bulk reports, it allows you to run multiple reports at the same time. So here we have this nice little pop-up. If I want to just run all of the 590 compliance reports that I need, I will just click this button and it'll generate all of these reports for me, and it'll send it to a nice little zip file on my computer in which I can save and then send that zip file off to the farmer or send it to the county if need be. But it's just a nice quick cheat to generate multiple reports at the same time. If for some reason, let's just say I'm running a SnapPlus database for a farm that does not have manure, I could get rid of my manure tracking, I could get rid of my winter spreading report. Because I don't have manure in my plan, there's no sense in providing a report that says nothing on it. So go through and select the ones that you need, click next. You can choose the years in which you're running the reports for. You can choose whether you want to use soil test p-values or the phosphorus index for your phosphorus compliance. You can pick specifically for your soil test summary. Do you want the short version? And then last but not least, you get to pick where you want this report to be saved. So again, it's navigating to my C drive and under the SnapPlus folder in my reports. And then I'm going to run reports. So it's going to run all of those reports, and then it's automatically going to save it to that location for me. So when the time comes when I need to send off those reports to someone, I can navigate right there and locate all those reports that I need. Okay, I have a little bit of time left here for questions. I don't want to keep on spieling when I have potential questions in the chat. So do we have anything, Isabel?
Nothing has come in the chat yet, but I think if anybody wants to, please feel free to put it in now and I can read it out, or you can unmute yourselves and ask directly. Nothing has come through yet.
I must have done a really, really good job, or I absolutely terrified everyone. One of the two.
Tracy left a comment that you did a great job. And someone else, Kate, mentioned that this was really informative. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. It is a ton of information to absorb. I highly suggest the best way to learn the program is to build your own fake farm. go through the process of, adding in some soil test results, drawing out some fields, running into specific compliance issues that you would see on the areas that you chose for your fields. And that's when you really start to kind of process and understand everything, is when you're running into all the little problems and tricks yourself. I have a question about how the new SnapPlus version 3 is looking. It's looking really good, guys. The developers have been working really, really hard on SnapPlus version 3. It is still definitely in development. We've had a couple beta testers working through the cropping screen, which has been really, really exciting. We've had some awesome feedback. The team has taken that feedback, and now they're working on kind of pulling together the whole kind of outline of what version 3 would look like. And I believe they're hoping for a mid-spring beta testing again for kind of an outline of what the program would look like. But I'm really liking what I'm seeing, and I'm very, very excited for it to be released. I think, we're still a year and a half out at least. So thanks for asking, Ethan. One thing that I realized I forgot to walk you guys through was the 590 checklist, which is a really, really important thing. So let me just show you guys that real quick. The NM8 590 checklist. Double click that, we'll open that up. We'll run it for the 2023 year. SnapPlus takes a lot of the information in the program, and as I stated very early on, it automatically fills out the checklist for us, which is awesome. But there are just some things that SnapPlus isn't able to necessarily answer. So you'll have to come through here, document why the plan was written. You'll have to come through and verify, are these checks okay? No, well, that's because I'm missing that 1 or 2 soil samples for that one field 1. I did not identify all my field boundaries, so they weren't able to check yes or no on that one. But down here, K, L, and M will never be checked. You will have to come down here and physically document that, yes, you made sure to prevent erosion. Here, you're not making nutrient applications within 8 feet of wells, irrigation wells, and then making no nutrient applications within 50 feet of all conduits to groundwater. So those are 3 that will always, always, always not be checked, and that you will have to come down here and check them. If you're a county staff person and you receive a checklist that isn't completely filled out, send it back. Ask them, hey, you're missing some information. I need this to be checked. And that is perfectly okay to do. A lot of times people just don't realize that it's not automatically checking things. And then the most important thing is to come down and sign the checklist. Not only does the nutrient management plan writer need to sign the checklist, but the farmer needs to sign it as well. Why does the farmer need to sign it? Well, to show that, yes, they have received the plan. Yes, they understand it, and they, are going to be able to implement the plan. So that was one thing that I definitely forgot to touch on, you guys. I apologize for that, but it's a very, very important feature.
Okay, does anybody have any last questions while we still have Andrea here?
I think everybody's probably hanging tight for their CEUs, so I will work on getting those pulled up if you want to finish wrapping stuff up, Isabel.
Perfect, can do. So I'd just say thank you so much for presenting today, Andrea. For everyone else, I mentioned it in the beginning, but I'll be sending out that evaluation link along with a link to the recording when it's ready. So have that on your mind. And then I'm going to stop the recording right now.